All right, welcome to Live from my drum room and my first show of 2026. My guest, John Aldridge, is truly a jack of all trades. He's the world's foremost drum engraver, a vintage drum historian. He was the founder of Not So Modern Drummer magazine. He's a drum tech. He's been Brian Hitt of REO Speedwagon's drum tech for 20 plus years. And he's also a drummer himself. You can see some of John's incredible engraving work on his Facebook and Instagram pages, so I encourage you to check those out. And he's truly a wealth of information, an all-around great guy, and it's my pleasure to welcome John Aldridge to Live from my drum room. Welcome, John. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you too.
Yeah, you packed the crowd today, buddy. You got a lot of folks tuned in here for you.
Well, it's my dynamic and magnetic personality.
It's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is. Yeah. Speaking of that, we were talking a lot offline, you and I know we were communicating on Facebook or someplace recently, talking about the first time we met, and I'm trying to remember. I think you remember. I remember it being in Nashville during a summer NAMM show at Tommy Winkler's drum shop sometime in the 90s. That
was probably the second time I met you. It could have been then, but I think it was. I thought I met you at the NAMM show that following or the year before that.
Okay.
I had come by flogging Not So Modern Drummer and trying to get an ad from Zildjian, and you recommended me to Colin Schofield, who actually bought an ad from Zildjian and ran it for a long time. It was a great day.
Oh, great. Well, that's great. You mentioned that. I'm so happy to hear that too. That's great. Well, I have this memory of us chatting I'd always pop into Tommy's drum shop there in Nashville when I was in town. And I just remember you, I didn't know you well. And I was kind of like a little intimidated because you're this mythical, guy that knows and you have this
great Oz.
Really, no, you are the mythical Oz, and you have this very quick wit, which I got right away, which I think that really kind of made me want to get to know you better because I found, you had some great sarcastic comments. I can't remember what they were at the time, but I just remember thinking, this guy's a hot shit, man. But
I was just younger and stupider.
Well, it's worked out well for you, I'd say.
That's been 30 years, man.
I know, 30 years. Wow. And boy, did that go by quick.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been Brian's tech for over 20 of those years.
Yep.
Which kind of, I remember, I don't know if you called me, but I remember us talking on the phone when you, probably around the time you started. And that's why when I asked you earlier, I was thinking, I know it's been a while, but I didn't think it had been that long. But again, it's just an example of how it's so hard to really just keep track of stuff these days as we get a little older.
It was only supposed to be a 2-week job. I came out to sub while they looked for a tech from California. And I had never been on the road as a tech before. So they were taking a great deal of a chance on me. Plus, I'd just come out of radiation therapy for 6 weeks of cancer treatment. Mm-hmm. And I was overweight. It wasn't a great showing, let's put it that way. But they seemed to like what I did, and they asked me to stay, so I did. And it was kind of weird. I came home, my wife says, well, did you get it out of your system?
Well, yes and no, honey.
Sort of not.
Wow. So that was a question I was going to ask you because I wasn't aware of you working for anybody before that like so many of the techs that we know, really great techs like yourself, they've just worked for so many different people. And I had that as a question, like, who are some of the guys that you worked for before Brian? And there's the answer. Wow. He was the first guy. And that was it.
I did a lot of studio rentals and things like that.
Yeah.
Not really so much outside of the sound check area there when I was in Nashville, but there for a while, Harry McCarthy, of course, you know who Harry is. He had a case of snare drums that I brought down. I didn't really understand the rental game when I sent him those snare drums because they weren't really prepped for what studio guys would use. They were completely original, very, very, very expensive vintage Black Beauties, but they looked like they'd just come out of the factory in the 20s. They weren't set up for somebody to whack on.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, Harry was probably the main inspiration for me going into drum teching. I did a story on him for Drum Magazine called Day in the Life of a Drum Tech. He was out with Bruce Springsteen.
Mm-hmm.
And I followed him from the time he rolled off the bus with the photographer and watched what he did, changed heads. And at the end of the changing of the heads, I said, "So you're ready for the show?" And he goes, "Yep, that's it." He says, "Shh." Turns out that was not it. 90% of being a drum tech is getting along. And that's getting along with your drummer as well as getting along with the crew guys that you're working with. And not causing someone else to do another job. And thankfully, I knew enough about drums that whatever came up drum-wise, I could figure it out. Because I worked, even though I wasn't a drum tech, I'd worked for a lot of drum companies, either talking to them, mostly custom drum companies, about how to get something made, how to get something fixed, how to fix something that was already made, things that were common errors that had been made in manufacturing 50, 60 years ago. How can you fix that? So I had a lot of practical experience with drums. And that's, I think, Brian trusted me because he was also a vintage drum nut.
Yeah.
And we actually hung out together before I went to work for him at drum shows in California. Every time I would go out there, he was always there. A lot of times he'd pick me up and take me to the show. But we've always shared that interest in vintage drums.
Yeah.
And he's got a ton of them, buddy.
Yeah. I remember that about him. I remember when I got to know him, and that he was one of the first guys that I can remember being like a vintage guy, like as you said, like going back 30 plus years, that like he'd say, he collects Black Beauties, right? Like vintage Black Beauties. And like
when I met him, he was playing a 30s Radio King set with REO Speedwagon.
Wow.
I mean, live on the road. And that was his second tour that he'd been doing with Radio Kings. Prior to that, he was a Tama endorser, and he didn't really endorse a drum company again until he got with Ludwig.
Mm-hmm.
But I was doing a project with Slingerland, and we'd gone out to Starwood, which is no longer there in Nashville, to see a concert with Fleetwood Mac, Brian, or REO Speedwagon, and Orleans. And REO was closing the show. Well, I was, like I said, working at Slingerland there. So during the day, I brought Brian over to visit with Pat Foley, and he played a set of Slingerland drums. And we actually took them to the venue. And his tech probably would have shot me at that time if he had known me well enough to pull his gun out. But he already had the kit prepped and ready for the show. And if somebody had shown up to me at 2:00 in the afternoon with another drum set and says, "Hey, can you swap these out?" I would have shot him. But I was pretty naive about stuff like that. I just assumed that when the pop star snapped his fingers, things happened. He did, but there's a guy like me making it happen.
Yeah.
And you're just a piece of a large machine, and I really enjoy that thing. I enjoy being a crew guy. I enjoy the camaraderie, riding on a bus, hanging out with my other instrument and gear obsessed friends, because everyone that I tour with is obsessed about their particular angle of the business. And I think that's what kind of makes us all float.
Have a lot of the guys, I know, just for everybody watching right now, this is you're heading out tomorrow to kind of sort of wrap up this is going to be it for REO Speedwagon, which is now the Kevin Cronin band due to some legalities and things like that. But I have to think, knowing you, that it's going to be really hard because of just the friendships you've created with the crew guys and with Brian and with everybody in the band.
It's a family. I mean, everyone from the manager to the road managers to our accountant, Diane Vanelli, is Joe Vanelli's wife, who's Joe is our recording engineer. And, there's the royal we. I'm ouring myself into REO Speedwagon. After 20 years, they can fire me. But no, it's a big bunch of people who have learned how to get along and extremely well.
Yeah.
It's just band politics that caused everything to kind of hit the fan. And if it had happened to an earlier band or a younger band, there's time to recover for that. And REO, Lord knows, has been through some stress and strain early on, and they did recover from that. But at the age that most of the original members are in their 70s now, and including Brian, so there's not a lot of room to make a U-turn and go back to something without somebody having to eat a whole bunch of crow, And that's about all I got to say about that. They don't have enough time. I think everyone, fans and most of the band included, wanted to go one more round with everybody involved ever coming back to play a little dab of it. But things got really tense, and people's egos and attitudes flared up, and a lot of social, what do you call it? What we're doing now, the social stuff reared its head, and the fans got involved, and it was nasty.
Yeah.
I'd hate to think what it'd be like with a younger band, because they've got billions of fans where we've got thousands and thousands, but it's
but
you know what
loyal.
it is.
Yeah, they're loyal.
Well, you've watched rock and roll your entire life from a bird's eye seat. You've seen all these guys fighting, talking in between stuff, and kept your mouth shut. And that's generally what keeps your gig.
Yeah.
If you understand that they're all people just like you, and they don't need to have their laundry aired by anyone.
Exactly.
It's just they've got their decisions, and they've decided to stick with that, and that's where I'm okay with it. I can, after 20 years, I have enough experience that some people will actually call me to work for them. So just got to do a really cool tour with subbing for a friend of mine, Steve Morrison.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Steve-O, with Motley Crue. Well, he was out on tour with Bryan Adams, and Motley Crue decided to do their residency. Well, he really wanted to do it, but he was out on this year-long cruise with Bryan Adams. So he called me and said, would you mind covering me for the time that I have to be in Las Vegas? And I said, I'd love to, So I went out and did that. And for 6 weeks, it was like going from Earth to Mars. The difference in the level of touring between what I was doing with REO and what Bryan Adams' organization was. They're a much more modern organization and larger. REO is 2 trucks, 2 buses, and 1 truck. If we're just playing gigs on ourselves and contracted lighting and sound. Bryan Adams is 9 trucks, 8 buses.
Wow.
And they're all of them packed, and there's like almost 80 crew guys. I never got to know everybody.
I wouldn't have thought the crew was that large a production, and I've seen Brian a bunch of when Mickey was in the band, I'd go see him, but I didn't. I guess I never. Yeah. Wow.
He pumped it up for this tour, I think. But
I see.
Several $1 million worth of sound and lighting that they carried with them.
Yeah.
And video. There were railroad tracks on the stage for the video automated thing that the guy was driving from behind stage with his controller. And 6 guys with video lined up there watching all of the screens that are shooting out to the public. They had blimps flying through the arena. It was it was a big show. And Pat Stewart, the drummer on that gig, I don't know if you've ever met Pat.
I'm years ago in Montreal at the drum festival, but I was just going to mention Pat. We became friendly through him watching the show, but I want you to talk about him. But he's a heck of a great drummer and a super duper nice guy. But you obviously know him pretty well. Yeah.
I don't know him as well as I'd like to, but after 6 weeks, we got along really well. He's a beast of a drummer, and I mean, time, just stupid good time.
Yeah.
But he plays in a very unorthodox way with his left hand really close in and his right hand just ranging and free ranging. But he's all over it. And, there's this one beat that he plays that's so simple that anybody could play it, but you can't make him feel like that.
Yeah.
He makes it feel like that. And the guy gets so much unbridled joy from playing that when he's singing backing vocals, it's just like, I got all that crap in my head, and I'm sitting there watching him. He's reared his head back, and there's this gigantic smile on his face, and he's belting it out like a 6th grader out of tune, in the school play. That's the attitude that I get off of him as I watched him play, and it was so much fun to do that tour. Steve-O came back at the end of the Motley Crue thing, and I'll have to say this: those guys work harder than any band I've ever seen. They go nonstop. We had,
wow. Yeah.
I was supposed to have a 2-day break in the middle of a run through Canada, and instead Brian decided just off the top of his head to do a TV special, film it for 2 days with 3 other bands. So with Brian and the Bare Naked Ladies and the Sheepdogs and a couple of Canadian artists that I didn't know, we sat there for 2 days and did videotaping of Christmas songs. And they released that before Christmas. And I think they're back out on the road already.
Yeah.
But they didn't stop until after Christmas.
Man.
It's just go, 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 go.
Yeah.
He'll do 7, 8, 9 shows in a row. We did 7. In London, we were doing an album promotion tour, and we did 11 shows in 7 days. Do the math there, Bubba.
Yeah. That blows my mind that, Brian's our age, and that he can still do that, sing.
Oh man.
Like
sings like a bird, man. He was in my ears too. And that was the great thing about this. Most bands that I've worked with have whatever the drummer needs to hear. That's what you hear. And I hear a duplicate of the drummer's mix. So mostly that's all I've ever heard. Well, that sounds like an album coming through the monitor mix. Their monitor engineer and their front of house are just stupid good people. Their monitor engineer is the former drum tech.
Oh, no kidding. That?
Yeah. Wow. So if I fell down during the gig, he picked me back up again. He was a great resource to have.
Man,
the spare tech.
Yeah.
That would be the drum tech.
And a great drum mix in the monitors too, no doubt.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Man. So you're going to do this run, and maybe you mentioned there's a possibility you might do something in February. I don't know if you want to talk about that, but if you don't, I mean, talking about what most people I think know you for, I think a lot of people know you for your engraving. You are a true master engraver. And is that something you feel like you want to now sort of, you haven't had the time to do, but you're going to jump back into that and put some more time into that?
My life is pretty much just going from one thing to the next. And it's just after 45 years of being a drummer, realizing I wasn't going to be the next rock star, I've been pursuing my angle of the drum business.
Yeah.
If I'm not at home engraving, somewhere doing a drum oriented thing, either I'm teching someone's kit, or I'm building a rack for somebody, or taking a rig for somebody like I'm doing with this thing. The only crew guy that had to go out there, so I got nominated to do all the rest of the stuff, like inventory it and build a bill of lading for it. So things like that. I'm always engraving, and I'm always doing something drum related. I've got a lot of custom drum projects. If I am off the road this year, I've got 3 projects going, all revolving around 3-way tension lugs, Gladstone lugs.
Yeah.
I ended up with a large supply of them, not from Arnie Lang's demise, but Arnie's, the person that took over from that, has been helping me a little bit too. But you'll see some stuff coming out through me and Joyful Noise, and also a Danette Aldridge thing. And also,
great.
Who's the other guy? Somebody else. But I'm limiting everything at this point to 10 drums, just because I'm an old guy and I don't want to work that hard. And literally, I've been pushing myself to get to 67 so that I can retire and then just do what I want to do instead of what I have to do. So you made that jump a little earlier than me, and I'm pissed off about that. But, you shouldn't be retired yet, John. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm glad I did. I'll just say that, boy. I won't get into that, but boy, what a crazy business it's become.
But as far as engraving, I've never stopped engraving. And the only time I stop is when I hurt myself, which has happened twice in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you hurt yourself engraving? Well, when I started out, I used to stab myself regularly. My left arm has scars all around my wrist, but nothing earth shattering, just enough to stop you from engraving. But since I fell off a riser 10 years ago and broke my shoulder, I don't pop back quite as quick as I used to.
Right.
So I have run into a spate of shells that are like when I first started engraving, I wasn't aware of what made a shell engravable, if the metal was soft enough to cut with hand tools or not. And so I would start on a project, and midway through it, I'd run into this crusty spot in the shell where, it's take a jackhammer to get through it. At that
Mm-hmm.
point, you start scratching the shell. You don't really, the blade's going to go somewhere else when it hits a spot like that. And you
Yeah.
can't predict it because you cannot see it. It's something underneath the surface. It happens from temperature fluxes when the shell's being made. No one who ever did anything to the shell prior to me would have ever noticed what happens. And you can have two shells come off the same production line, go into the same shelves, but one of them's closer to an air vent, and it will cool faster than the other one. And
Mm.
that one that cools faster is harder. Ludwig went away from me in the 90s, early 90s. In 1989, I started engraving the Black Beauty for them. I did a 3x13, a 5x14, and a 6.5. And after about the first 50 drums, they were really pissed off at me because I scratched them. And it's like, well, dude, it's like you're just scooting along here making wonderful progress, and all of a sudden you're walking on ground glass. And they didn't know why, and I didn't know why.
Yeah.
But they hired another engraver closer to town, and he discovered the same thing. He knew a little bit more about it, and I don't know how he overcame it, but for a long time, they had a lot of his shells there that were scratched.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of my shells there that were scratched because Ludwig wouldn't sell a second. They eventually gave them all, I think, to rock stars or endorsers or things like that. But for the most part, Ludwig doesn't sell seconds. They've changed in the last few years. And if it's something that can be fixed so that you won't see it when you look at it, they'll sell it as a second. They won't try to sell you something with a flaw as a first quality item. Ludwig's pretty meticulous. But they also, because they don't manufacture their own shells like that, they're contracted through a specialist industry that does nothing but spinning and hydroforming. There are changes in the shells that, again, unless you're going to cut into it, you'll never know it changed.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that experience in 2020 with some shells made right after their 110th anniversary shells. I had been cutting those 110th anniversary shells that were great. And someone complained that the shells were too gray. They weren't black enough. And guys at Ludwig hear that a lot because that's what black nickel is. It's not black, it's gray.
Mm-hmm.
And the longer you leave it before you seal it, the blacker it gets. But if it gets sealed quickly, it's more of a gray.
Okay.
Gray is really what you're shooting for. But because this one customer or this batch of customers were especially persistent, Ludwig accommodated them by experimenting with some new finish methods. And one of them they experimented was, I'm going to call it bulletproofing, because I couldn't get through that shell to save my life. I completely ruined 3 drums. I couldn't do anything to them. I could not make the blade dig through that finish. And I called them up and said, what are you doing? And they didn't know exactly what it was, but they, it was just something that they were trying to get a more durable finish. And I said, boy, you got it. And it's black as the night. If you were looking for something that no one could destroy, you've come up with the perfect finish. This is the greatest thing since sliced bread for black nickel finishes, because you won't ever have a problem with it. It's like a gun coating, ceramics, something on that level of hardness. And so they did it for, I think, 2-3 years, and then they went back to their old method. But something has changed. The last few shells that I've gotten from them are about 90% soft and about 10% hard. And again, it's a really frustrating thing when somebody sends off their birthday present that they just got from their wife and they've wanted it their entire life. Yeah. And it looks perfect when they send it to me, and I engrave a pattern on it, but there's this one panel, it's got some scratches on it. So, I always offer people the option, as long as it's not an irreplaceable drum. And I had to eat one of these the other day. It's like, if you send me a drum and I tell you I can engrave it, if I screw it up, I'll buy you another one just like it, and I'll send that one back to you. And you'll have your money back for your engraving. You'll have your drum.
Wow.
It cost me when that happened. Like, it cost me
Sure.
$2
Yeah.
grand on one drum because a guy sent me a 70s Black Beauty that was just beautiful. And I got about a third of the way across the top half of it, and I could go no further. I injured myself twice trying to continue. For a while,
Jeez.
they would try to cut an inch a day, and that was it. Once you cut an inch, your arm was shot. So I finally just gave up on it. And it's a great sounding drum. It actually resides at a local studio here in Denison where I live. But I wouldn't sell it like that. If the guy had wanted it back, he could have it, but it's got a third of a scroll pattern on it. So it's
Man.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But those are, there's always somebody who'll want something like that. But this one I'll probably have for the rest of my life just because the guy that bought it overpaid for it. It's about $1,000 drum, and he paid $2,000 for it. But to keep my customer from losing his $2,000 investment, I bought it from him. So I haven't had to do that a lot.
Well, that's good.
Most people, if I say, look, I scratched your drum, I'll either discount it for this or I'll buy you another one and do it for you. And 9 times out of 10, I accept the fact that if you're going to head into my drum with a knife, it might get scratched.
Yeah. This is fascinating, John. I had no idea. You kind of mentioned this to me when we talked a while ago about me possibly sending you a drum to have you engrave it. And you just mentioned it today that, talking about the softness of the metal and whether it's possible. And I think this is really informative for people to understand exactly what goes into what you do. I mean, this is just, and it's all done by hand. And do you risk damaging your tools when you, look at that.
No, there's not a lot to damage there.
Okay.
It's a piece of metal with a handle.
Do you have to sharpen it regularly?
You have to sharpen the tip of it. And that's a lot of times, if the metal's really soft, I can do it a whole drum without sharpening it again. Mm-hmm. And it'll cut just like the first cut on the last cut. But if it's hard metal, I'll have to sharpen it, like I said, once an inch. It becomes an item, you quote someone a price for what it should take to do that job. Like I just quoted a guy a price to do that Egyptian themed drum. Mm-hmm. It was supposed to take me 3 days to do it. It wound up taking me 3 weeks to do it, part of which I could not engrave because I strained myself working on it. So, you just really got to be careful when you jump into something that's that intricate, because if you promise somebody you're going to do it for X amount of dollars, you're going to do it for X amount of dollars. And it's scratched to hell and gone.
Wow.
I could have covered the scratches with marks that made the rocks look like they were cracked. But every time I put the blade to that drum was a chance it was going to scratch again. Mm-hmm. And I did the pattern I wanted to do, but it would have been 10 times more ornate and would have taken less time had the metal not been so hard.
And jumping backwards, when did you start, kind of what was the impetus, first of all, for you to get into doing it? Had you seen someone doing it? And
no, I'd never seen anyone do it. In fact, it took me several years just to find someone who engraved. And then they didn't want to teach me or show me or even talk to me. It was a kind of a cloak and dagger guild, if you will, of people who went through apprenticeships and training and things like that to do all of the engraving. I didn't want to do all of the engraving. I wanted to do something that really nobody does anymore because we've got better ways to do things now. I'm engraving with a specific style that was used for hundreds of years before I ever started. And I'm using the same pile of tools that was used 100 years ago or 200 years ago or 300 years ago. It's that old. But we've developed better tools, can do much finer art with these other tools. I just got into engraving because I was a school teacher and I couldn't afford an engraved drum. Just started collecting drums in the early 80s, fresh out of college. And I met Jim Pettit at Memphis Drum Shop. Jim.
Sure, yeah.
And a bunch of the guys that I met have since passed on, but they all introduced me to Black Beauties. I was on this quest to find the perfect snare drum. At that point, I thought that if I found it and if it was my perfect snare drum, that it was going to be the best snare drum ever in the world. It doesn't work that way. But I found my ideal after several years, and it did turn out to be a Black Beauty. But then I changed my complete style, and it doesn't fit with what I play now. So it was a weird goal, but I could not afford the $600 that a Black Beauty cost in 1982. Mm-hmm. So I started looking around for someone to engrave one for me. I did finally find an engraver, but he wanted $750 in 1982 or 1983 to engrave what I would pay $600 to buy already engraved from the 20s. So you can see that was a bit of a quandary. And I realized I would never be able to afford the drum or the engraver. So the only way for me to do this was to learn how to engrave. And I asked everywhere where there was an engraver around that did things like that. Most of them by that point were using a pantograph engraver, where you just put these letter forms on it, and then you would trace a pattern and the blade would cut it. Nobody was really doing artistic engraving except for on saxophones. So the industry has always been alive, and it always amazed me that Ludwig didn't just take all of this into the Selmer factory and have their saxophone engravers do it. Well, the reason is that the saxophone engravers knew about the metal part hardening problem. They won't work on something that's finished. They demand that it be prepped for them. And I mean, what they're cutting on is hot butter compared to me. In fact, most guys that engrave, when they see that I'm engraving on something that's already been plated, they think it's loony. Why would you do that? The risk is so big. And it's the only way to get it to look like that. Mm-hmm. Black Beauty is the only reason that I engraved. And it's also the reason why I didn't move on past what I'm doing right now. And I just kept getting more involved with this one little bitty teeny weeny style of the hand engraving. I have a lot of friends now that are hand engravers, but none of them do what I do, except John Christensen has started. And he was already a trained machine engraver and a jeweler. He's also older than me, so it's like, boy, we're going to be in the old folks' home whittling on the front porch. But he combines the styles that came out after what I do with the style that I use, and you'll see a little bit of wriggling on like Western belt buckles, where they use a thing called chasing. They'll layer metals on top of metals, and then they'll inlay metals in metals. Again, I never saw that on a drum. It wasn't my goal. I didn't want to be an engraver. I wanted an engraved drum. And I just fell into being an engraver just by a fluke,
And when, do you remember about what year that was approximately? I mean, if you had to, when you started doing it other than just for yourself, like the mid 80s?
85, I was getting good enough to do one for somebody else.
Okay.
I wasn't good enough, but I had deluded myself into thinking I was good enough. So I started doing a lot of practice shells. I'd buy a 6-lug shell that had tube lugs on it. And at that point, nobody wanted 6-lug drums. Everybody wanted tube lugs. Yeah. So I could take these 6-lug crap shells and I could use them for practice. And then I could sell the tube lugs or use them in a custom build of my own. So that was my motivation for getting other drums and engraving. Well, I used to just hang them on the wall when they were done because no one would buy that crap. When I left Oklahoma and moved to Boulder, Colorado in 89, I gave all of those shells to a former student, and he had a free floater, and he would put all these partially engraved shells in there. Now, some of these things I took to school with me because at the time I was an elementary music teacher. I taught kindergarten through 3rd grade music in Chelsea, Oklahoma, in the early 80s. And I would sit on the merry-go-round at recess, and one little kid over here, one little kid over here, draw me a horse, Mr. Aldridge. Here comes a horse. Draw me a spider. So there's all these shells floating around there that had this goofy playground art. And it was just another way for me to get used to holding onto the blade. But I think the first drum I did for somebody was for Harry Kanganey's employees. They sent me a piccolo to do for Harry. And that was right when that 3x13 piccolo came out. And Harry was responsible for me getting in with Ludwig because at the time, Drum Center of Indianapolis was Ludwig's biggest customer.
Mm-hmm.
And Harry sent a drum of mine down to them and said, why don't you use this guy? And shortly after that, I got a call from Dick Gerlach, who said, we want to send you 3 shells for samples. And I did a 3 and a 5 and a 6.5. And then they sent 6.5s to me. And before I could even finish that other batch, they'd already added Reed Smith into the mix down in Charlotte. He found out about the engraving project through another guy that worked in the factory. And Reed had a trophy shop 7-8 miles from the factory. And I think his offer was, well, I'll drive over there and pick up the shells and engrave them for the same price he'll do it, and you won't have to ship them or pack them. So he wound up taking that job away from me after just the beginning of it. So,
oh, man.
But it wasn't really that big a deal because at the same time, a lot of other things, a lot of custom companies were coming along, and they were doing flower engraving, and everybody that I knew wanted a scroll engraved drum. So I got in with Todd Trent, used to be artist relations guy for Ludwig.
Yeah, sure.
And he called me up. I called him. I said, man, since I'm not engraving for Ludwig, I need a way to get Ludwig drums to engrave for my customers. And I want to do kind of a special thing. And so he would sell me drums as an artist. And I would engrave them, scroll engrave them, take all the hardware off and copper plate it or brass plate it, because back then you couldn't get copper or brass plating unless you went to a chrome shop and got her done. So I probably sold 100 drums a year that way until Ludwig finally came back to me in 89 for the 90th anniversary. And I've done most of their stuff. Well, the Black Beauties, I've done all of them since then. Adrian, of course, did the 100th anniversary, and he did that standard model that had just the single panel engraved. But yeah, it's once they realized it was not a finite art and that everyone was going to make mistakes, it was very nice of them to come back to me.
Well, I feel like I remember hearing your name before I met you, and I'm in my mind, I'm thinking it's probably more like the late 80s. I asked if it was the mid 80s, but it sounds like that might have been too soon. But Myron Grombacher, who was playing Ludwig until probably the mid 80s, and then Tama after that. And I feel like Myron either had a drum or told me about this, engraver.
He had a drum, but it wasn't one of mine. He had a snare drum. It was a bronze Superphonic 6.5. That's what he recorded all those hits on with Pat Benatar. Anything he recorded with her was done on that one drum. I met him in 2006 or 7 or 8 somewhere. Pat was opening for REO Speedwagon for a whole summer tour. And we got to hanging out and we started talking about this drum. And when we get off the road, I want to send it back to your house. And I want you to put this tattoo on it. You've seen that tattoo of the bleeding heart with the barbed wire on it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
Well, I wound up making up a barbed wire scroll to go around the drum and put the heart on the one panel for him. So that's what it looks like now. But he probably had seen some of the stuff I was doing at that point, but I wasn't really ready to do stuff like that yet.
At that point,
flowers were a challenge at that point. It was 89 was my first big jump, and I actually started working for DW before Ludwig.
Okay.
DW, and that was just because I knew Dave Levine and Johnny Craviotto.
Yeah.
And Dave helped me draw a pattern for DW, and Craviotto insisted that they use me anytime that he had a project that they could squeeze me in on. Johnny was my biggest benefactor, probably, and Harry Kangany. Those two probably have more to do with me getting out there and people knowing who I am than anybody.
Well, I want to show a couple of examples of just a few things that we were talking about earlier. This is a beautiful piece right here. This is, and you can, I'll let you fill in the blanks on this one. I assumed it belonged to Neil Peart, but you can tell the
Everybody
story
assumes that, and then I can't figure out why. There's no association at all.
I don't know why either. Yeah.
I had done a few of these drums where I took like a pattern, and then I took elements of the customer's legend, if you want to call it, and I put them on top of the pattern. Like I had one guy that wanted a drum to memorize or immortalize his grandmother. And so there were little hidden shot glasses all over the thing, and things that she liked, old artwork, but they were all kind of in between. There was this really dense scroll engraved pattern. People started seeing that, and that became something that almost took over everything else. So anyway, I was doing these drum sets for Kiss for their final tour, and all I was doing was building the racks. Billy Baker was building the drums and taking pearl drums and putting mirrors on them, fiberglass, and mirror plating, covering them and putting new hardware on them. That's like brand new drums from the 70s. Mm-hmm. And I built a couple of those racks. And right after I started the first one, they brought Lorne in because Lorne was going to do the tour, Lorne Wheaton. And he was Neil's tech for a long time. And
right. Yep.
When he came in there, we went out to eat one day. And that was about the time that Neil died. And he was devastated by it. And I finished the rack, went back home, and I got a call from Eric Singer. He says, I need you to do a special drum for me for Lorne. I want you to make a Rush drum that has all the Rush album artwork on it that you can find and something to tie it together like that scroll thing. And I think of Rush and their artwork, and I think Gears, probably just because it's really good artwork on their albums. But this is actually the second one. I did the first drum for Lorne, and I posted it on Facebook, and all the Neil collectors came out, and everybody had to have one. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life doing this because it takes a week to do one of these things.
Okay. That's what I was going to ask you.
And that's if the shell is soft and easy. You can do the what's between that, the two lugs, you can do 2 of those a day, 2 of those panels. And then you're not worth knocking in the head till the next day. It just takes a lot of time. That stinking owl has like 20, 30,000 cuts in him. Wow. He's pretty. Boy, did he take a long time.
It's absolutely stunning. It really is. It's just, yeah.
Well, I sold 10 of those original ones. And then like I was telling you earlier, a guy came on the last day, and I said, no, I already sold all 10 of them. He said, well, do me another one, different design. So that's the second design, is the one you were showing me. I'm not sure how to show you pictures, but I found the first design in my Instagram. And if you know how to share pictures from Instagram on here, I can show you a picture of that.
Okay. I think if you go to that green share button on the bottom.
Okay. Green share button on the bottom.
And do you have your Instagram feed opened up at the moment?
Share screen.
So click on that and see if that brings it up.
Okay. Allow this time. All righty. Can you see it? Let's see. There's a lot of drums in this thing. It's been going for several years. Lordy. Sorry.
No, it's okay. And you answered while you're looking for that, you answered that question, which is, how long does it take you to do something like that? And that took a week to do that. Is that kind of, that's a pretty good sort of benchmark for time?
No.
Prior
to this, most of the drums that I did were 3 to 4 hours.
Okay.
It was a rare drum that took me a whole day to do. I just didn't have anyone interested in spending that money on a single drum. I think this is a result of the pandemic. People were trapped at home. They had all of their money that they would use for discretionary funds, and they couldn't do it because they couldn't get out of their house. And this popped out at that point, and all of a sudden, the money that I would never have thought that people would have spent on drums, they spent on drums.
Do you typically take the input from people for the designs, or do you often come up with your own design? Do people ask you to come up with the design, or is it usually they know they have an idea of what they want you to do? I'm guessing that's probably the most common situation, right?
Most people come to me and they don't have a clue.
They don't have a clue. Okay.
They'll see a drum on there and they say, "Hey, I'd love to have a drum engraved. Can you send me some pattern ideas?" So
Yeah.
I'll send them some pattern ideas, and I say, well, this is great. I love this. Like, how much is this? Well, that's $2,000. Well, I didn't want to quite spend that much. So I said, well, okay, what you probably want is a classic design, so like a flower pattern or a simple scroll pattern like you saw on the 90th anniversary Ludwig or the 80s Ludwig Black Beauty, or even, well, the 100th anniversary is one of those expensive patterns because it's a really, really dense scroll. Got a lot of lines in it.
Mm-hmm.
But even that is only like $850. Now, if you order that scroll, you don't get the Ludwig 100th anniversary job. You just get the scroll that goes behind that job. And I don't think I sent a picture of you that. But, okay, this thing, it says View Tab. Can you see this?
Yeah, I can see that. It looks beautiful. Yeah, that I wanted to tell you you're sharing it, so people are seeing
Shut
it.
up.
No, you're doing a fine job there, John. Fine job, pal.
Fine job of disco sharing here. Let me go back to that Chrome tab, Instagram, share, and so you can see that.
Yes, yep. We were all looking at that, marveling. And by the way, there's a whole lot of your friends.
That's the first one.
Watching right now.
Do you see see that one? There says "Know Your Place in Life." It's just inside one of the grooves, and it's a measure of a life. Those are lines from Rush songs. The thing that made these 10 drums individual was that each person who bought one had a line from a particular Rush song that meant something to them.
I see. Yeah,
and
it's
I
a
put
measure
it
of
somewhere
life
in the pattern.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you can see most of the major icons in there. Those are recognizable. R40, the Rush logo.
Yeah.
But the wheels and stuff back there are just a conglomerate of wheels that I found and put together.
I see.
And that's what I changed for the second version of it. But,
and is there
you still got Rush's artwork?
Yeah, and it's gold plated, or is it, or just in some places, or am I seeing it? Is it entirely gold?
What it is that shell is made out of brass and it's black nickel plated. So when you put a blade through black nickel plating, you expose the brass. That's how you get that gold on black look.
That's what that is. Okay. Yeah. Yep.
I'm not putting gold in. I'm taking black out.
I got you. Yep. But it gives that similar sort of effect of a gold on black look, which is,
You get a great contrast when you engrave on a plated surface with a contrasting base metal underneath it. Like you've got one of those Gretsch all engraved drums, all gold drums. Those were plated after they were engraved. So you don't get that contrast.
Yeah. Actually, when you're done sharing, I can
show us.
Yeah.
Show us that one.
This is as rare as hen's teeth. It's a stop sign badge version of that gold-plated drum. You don't ever see these. And I also have, wait a minute, a round badge.
There's two.
But wait, there's more. Yeah.
With this, you get a pocket fisherman. Yeah. Those are rarer than hen's teeth. And it's hard to find one that has the gold all on it because it rubs off really easily. It's very thin gold.
Yeah.
I think they started those in 67. It went through 71. You can tell the earlier they are, the engraving is not so hot on the first few. And as they went along, it got better.
Yeah. This one would be a later one, to your point, John, and because it has the stop sign badge, which they transitioned to in 69. And this is definitely it seems to be a better engraved job than the older one, than the round badge.
Yeah, they probably hired somebody with about my level of talent 30 years ago. And that's about what I could do 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a single blade job, which is interesting. It's the cheapest way to do something. I mean, you can start whizzing on that baby, and if the shell's smooth, I can have that drum done for you in 2 hours.
Wow.
It's a really simple, repetitive pattern. But that's where you mentioned people don't know what they want. I steer them to the Ludwig flower pattern, the Ludwig scroll pattern, the Leedy Thunderbird pattern. Those are all, under $500.
That's amazing. I think
And
that's
that's
an
what most folks are
incredible.
looking for. Or
Yeah,
used
that's a
to be.
great a bargain, for
Yeah.
creating
I
something
do a
so
lot of,
unique.
in the last couple of years, I've done a lot of limited editions for music stores that were having anniversaries. Like, you've been to Bentley's drum shop?
Hmm. Yeah,
And
in
he,
Fresno. Yeah.
yeah, he had a project that was really interesting. We did 30 drums, and each one had a different engraving pattern on it. And I used as many classic patterns as I could find. Only there's like 5 or 6 that are my designs. All the rest of them were lifted right off of a vintage company and shrunk down to fit in a panel on that drum. And each one was also numbered for 1 year of Dana Bentley's Drum Shop's life. So I actually wound up with 1996 drum. And then Jim Pettit had a bunch of DWs done with the Ludwig 12-point flower. And then another shop, John, what is John's name? I'll remember it here in a second, but I did just a few, like 10 for him. Drugan?
Yeah.
No, not Drugan. I'll think of it.
Do you have any other photos you want to share?
Let me see if I can go back in here.
I was gonna
sharing that.
I had another photo I was going to put up there that.
Here's a panel from the Australian drum. That is I think it's got a kookaburra on it. This is just some other Australian bird under there, but it is a kookaburra. Sorry. Yeah, its tail comes over and goes out around it. It's weird. But this was, I bet I spent 30 hours on the phone with this guy.
Wow.
Talking from Australia. And it wasn't an internet call.
Wow. I hope you charged him.
Well,
I hope he called you.
Yeah. And see the kangaroo there?
Yes. Yeah.
And the kangaroo's inside an outline of Australia. Now, this was an in progress shot. I actually wound up filling in that entire Australia thing with fill. There's 2 porpoises. And see the shark there on top?
I do. Yeah.
See, he's chasing a swimmer?
I do. This was his design?
Well, no. The shark was his design. The swimmer was mine. And there's a boomerang and 2 cricket paddles on top of 2 alligators fighting. Of course, everybody needs 2
crocodiles.
On there.
Yeah, crocodiles down in Australia.
Yeah, crocodiles. Okay. And then you got your platypuses and your little baby sea turtles. And then that's the bridge in Sydney Harbor, and there's the Opera House.
Yeah, look at that.
A couple of koalas, a couple more kangaroos.
That's a proud Aussie right there. That's someone who's proud of his.
He likes his Australian animals. I'll guarantee that one.
Yeah.
This is a joyful noise.
That's beautiful.
They remind me of Buster Brown's shoes. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a powder-coated aluminum. And this is one I did for Brian. It's aluminum. It's got the REO Speedwagon logo in it, and that's his autograph down below it. Every time I do a drum for him, and there's a bunch of them, I put his name on it and the REO logo. One day his wife came to me and says, "Can you put my name in there somewhere?" So one of the drums has her name on it.
Oh, that's great. I just thought too, have you done stuff for Ringo too? Have you done through Ludwig?
Through Ludwig, they gave him a drum on his 70th birthday or 71st birthday. And they asked me to just put a peace sign on it or a heart or something like that. And no, I'm going to get one chance to do something for Ringo. I'm going to go all the way around it with something. So it has hearts and flowers and peace signs and the hand shooting the peace sign. And yeah, And then for his 80th birthday, I had done a project for a Chicago collector that had all the artwork from the Beatles albums on it.
Oh man.
And so Greg Bissonette saw that one and showed it to Jeff Jonas, and they cooked up the idea for the band to buy that for Ringo's birthday present. So according to legend, you can ask Jeff if this is right, or you can ask Ringo. You probably know them both. But this is the only drum that Barbara will let Ringo have in the house.
Wow.
On display. And
yeah.
And I always tell people that I don't have Ringo Starr's autograph, but he's got 2 of mine.
That's right.
Oh, hey, Ringo, but if you're listening, I could sure use an autograph.
Man, well, I want to just read a comment from David Keith, who says, "Can't wait to see what you do to my drum." So obviously one of your customers, and John Christensen I saw was watching, who you gave a shout out to. So thanks for tuning in, John. Man, this is some incredible stuff. Really incredible. There was also a this was a really cool drum I'm going to just share a quick picture of. That's probably one of your more simple examples of your work, but it's just so beautiful. I mean, just wow. Kathleen Kelly is saying it's about time to get my husband a nice one. One of these days. Kathleen from Kelly Shoe.
Yeah, I engraved one of their shoes once when they were doing the metal ones.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I think that's in Grumbacher, Myron's bass drum.
Oh, that's so cool. Wow.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
He was asking about him there. Here we go. No, I'm not on the link again here.
She's going to be in touch. Do you see the drum I have up there now, John? The one that says Paul Holder?
Yep.
I was just saying that's a drum that's probably a simpler, kind of a less extensive job than some of the other ones.
Less extensive job. It's still expensive. I think that's around $750.
Mm-hmm.
It should have engraved hoops too, but those are steel hoops and not something that's fun to engrave on, and you're liable to scratch them more than you are to make them look pretty. So I told him, don't waste your money. Yeah.
You're good like that.
Well, also I don't like hard work. But that is a Ludwig Triumphal pattern from the 20s. Ludwig used to produce a drum that had that pattern on it. And inside the pattern, it was burnished, so it was shiny. And on the outside, it was matte finished, like this drum is. So the inside of that pattern would have been shiny, and the outside would have been matte in the 20s. And it would have all been gold-plated after it was engraved. Adrian Kirschler, really super engraver in Italy/Germany, somewhere in the mountains, produced this on like 39 or 40 snare drums for Ludwig's 100th anniversary. They were just incredible. But yeah, that's what the pattern is, and that's where it came from.
That's beautiful. I don't know if people care about this, but I'm going to, on a personal note, share this picture of this, or show my Ludwig Black Beauty that I think you're saying is eligible for engraving, right? You think this is going to be
I believe that would be a good candidate for engraving.
A good candidate for engraving.
Yeah. It's a fairly recent drum, probably from around 2000, somewhere in 2009 to 2016, somewhere in there.
Okay. Yeah. When you get home and settled, I'm going to send it your way, and no hurry. And we'll talk about the design.
Yeah.
Excited.
The design is, I look at it as like, if you don't want to have somebody stick a needle in you and get a tattoo, this is pretty close.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you can sell it if you need to. It's hard to sell your arm.
I know. Exactly. Yeah. I'm not interested in having my arm, Yeah. No, I don't want to do that, but this would be beautiful. And I could look at it when I play, and it'll bring me great joy and pleasure. So yeah.
There's another one. Can you see this?
Not yet, but there we go. Yep. Now I can. Oh, yeah. Look at that. Was that for a customer?
That is the Beatles drum.
Okay. That is the Beatles drum.
It's before it was cleaned up, so there's a lot of stuff on there that's just left over from engraving it. But there's a blue meanie, and there's the help outlines. And then if you look, there's the revolver faces on either side of the cartoon faces. You see, there's
Yep.
the
Yeah.
kind of, as the
Yeah.
110th anniversary. I think I've done maybe 5 of these, 4 or 5 of them. But that's one of those that I won't do more than 10 of. Because those little autographs right there, those are a bitch. Those things are less than an inch long.
I can only imagine. Yeah, look at that. Wow. Spectacular.
And let's see, keep going through here. That's another one of the, that's the one I did for Lauren. This is the very first one. This is the only one that has Neil's autograph on it.
Okay.
That was the thing that I agreed with Lauren, is like, the only one with an autograph on it's going to be yours. So I actually took a copy of an autograph that he had and put it on there. So that was the one that started that whole mess. And you can see it's quite a bit simpler than the second version. It's still neat artwork, but I tried to make it so that nobody had the same drum as the other guy. Kind of the opposite of what a drum company asked me to do. They all want them to look alike. And so I get it.
I look at that and I can't say that it's any simpler, but I'm sure you can. the guy that made it.
You stare at them for a while and they tend to get pretty old pretty quick. I can find mistakes in any drum.
I'm sure you can, John. Yeah. I have a great question from Wade Dixon that I'd like to ask you. And he's asking, is it easier to engrave different metals? For example, copper, brass, or aluminum? Is any one of those?
Yes, copper and aluminum are a party. I mean, on the day I'm doing an aluminum drum, I just know that it's going to be a good day. I can go out to lunch. I can be fine. And that drum's going to be finished before I get the dinner bell, Mm-hmm. And the copper, pretty much the same thing. Pewter makes it a little bit harder, but yeah, it's definitely, the metal makes a difference. Wade has one of those Rush drums. So.
He does. Okay.
Yep.
Great. Wow. Well, just to shift gears for a second, and you're also a custom built snare drum builder or drum builder. Do you still do some?
I don't do a lot of that anymore. I pretty much channel all of the experimental stuff that I do through Joyful Noise anymore.
I see.
More. Kurt Waltrip approached me right when I was, about the time I was going to sell Not So Modern Drummer. I decided in earnest to be a full-time drum tech, and Kurt called and was asking me all these questions that I would have asked someone 20 years earlier. And I says, Kurt, sounds like you're trying to build a replica of a Ludwig Black Beauty. And he goes, sort of, but I want it to be kind of like between the old one and the new one. And I says, okay, well, what parts do you want to hang on to? And I'll tell you how not to do it. Because if there's anything I've learned in this industry, it's what I don't know. And that everything I do know, I learned by doing it wrong the first time, pretty much. Mm-hmm. And that's certainly true for finding out how to make things. I thought that the Ludwig from the 20s was 2 pieces, top and bottom, but they were 1 piece. I thought each one of those was spun into that circle. Nope, they were rolled into that circle. Then they were rolled together. There's no spinning involved in that process. You don't get a spun Black Beauty until you get to 1963, and then even that's not a Black Beauty. They just changed their manufacturing from rolling shells and welding to spinning the metal. It's similar to how nose cones on a jet are made, or those gigantic aluminum pots where they extrude the shape out of a flat disc of metal. But, I learned a lot about manufacturing and things like that just by being a fly on the wall when my other friends that were into it were doing their own thing. I watched Johnny from the beginning, when he was learning how to bend wood on the beach from a boat builder to to having his own thing. And my son actually bent wood at Craviotto for a couple years.
I was going to ask you, does he still work for Craviotto, your son?
No, his playing career is his focus.
Oh, great.
And
Okay.
he's doing pretty good at it, and he's also learned to engrave. So
Great.
we're
I
Aldridge
thought
and
so.
Son right now.
You
Yeah,
are?
and
Okay. Great.
he's been doing some stuff mostly based out of Nashville, but I was really busy towards the end of the year when a lot of people had stuff they needed right then, and he took over one job for me, did a really good project on it, and I don't know how much longer I'm going to be doing. All my friends are dying, so all the
Let's
people
not
that are 10 years older than me,
let's not
I'm
think
thinking,
about
is
that.
that all that I got left is 10 years?
No,
I'm
no,
trying
no, it's
not
not.
to, but man, there's people that lived a lot more pampered lives than me. And I've got, that's your drum room. Your drum room looks manageable. I'm sitting in my drum room and it looks like a drum factory blew up in a warehouse. And it's about as organized as if nobody cleaned up after the explosion. So,
Well, I
but
have one more
it's
question about
realizing
your.
that you got to get rid of this stuff.
Yeah, no, I've been doing that, and I'll tell you about that too. But I think at the time I had these drums made, my Craviatos, about 18 months ago. Was Lucas working there at the time? I think you said. Was he still there?
Yes.
He was.
Yes.
Okay.
He probably worked on your drums.
That
Yeah.
makes me so happy.
And if you have one of those first Slingerland Radio Kings, the DW Radio Kings that they're putting out now,
Yeah. Yep.
if you've got one of the first 200 or 300 of those, he probably worked on that too.
That's right. Yeah.
That was a turnkey project that DW did, or not DW, but not John Good, Don
Yeah.
Lombardi had Craviotto make the shells for those Radio Kings.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
my son he's a drummer. He's a way better drummer than I was, and he's already a lot farther along down the road than I ever made it as a drummer. But I get to go places he doesn't just because as a tech, doors open.
Yeah. That's right. That's right.
And it drives him nuts. It'll be years before he gets on a tour bus as nice as mine.
You keep telling him that too. Keep him in line. He starts to get too full of himself. Another question from the audience, Doug McKenzie, longtime watcher, asking, do you map out all the artwork on paper before transferring it to the drum? Do you?
Definitely.
Yeah, you do.
I'm a lousy artist. I suck with a pencil.
I doubt that.
But
I truly doubt that.
No, I really do. I can destroy something in a heartbeat with a pencil. But
I don't know how you can do this and not be a great artist, but go ahead.
There's great art and you copy it. I'll take a pattern, and if I'm going to do one drum, just one, and it's a new pattern, I will paint that drum white with watercolor. And then I will draw it on there with a pencil, roughing it out. Just basically, where's the big curves, where's the little curves, and where's the line start, where's the line end. Sometimes I don't even draw the line. I just draw a dot to show where it's going to end. And it's all based on the spacing of the holes in the drum, lug spacing. That's if I'm going to do one. But if I'm going to do 4 or 5 of them with the same pattern on it, I'm going to print that pattern. I'm going to draw it as nice as I can. If it's a top and bottom symmetrical pattern, I'm going to pick the best quadrant that I have drawn, cut that, reverse it, flip it, fold it over, and make 4 copies of it that go the right direction. In other words, I use my computer a lot to make things as perfect as I can. And then I take my hand and make it imperfect again by copying it onto the shell. So even with a perfect drawing, you put the artwork on it, and then you do your best to trace it, and then you start cutting. And metal is like wood. It has a grain. Sometimes the blade goes where you want it to. Sometimes it veers slightly, and you really got to be attuned to it to notice when it's veering, because it doesn't really feel that much difference. You got to be constantly watching the tip of the blade to see where it's going. And it's, at my age with my vision, that's the biggest challenge, is watching the tip of that blade as I'm cutting along there, because you should see the glasses that I wear when I do that. I mean, I already look like, Mortimer Snerd, but I really look weird with those glasses on because they're so thick. But,
I understand. Yeah, it's
oh,
precision. You can't mess around. Do you find that you have like a certain amount of like time per day that you can really like beyond a couple of hours you start to sort of your eyes get tired or your muscles or I mean, is it like a piecemeal thing where
it depends. If it's something that I'm really into, like the one that's showing right now there, if you can see it,
yes, yeah.
it's that's Kevin Packard's drum.
I thought
It's
so.
got all
Yeah, I
his
saw
family.
Packard.
Yeah. And there's the Great Jedi Mind Trick album cover, and then there's a Death Star. Then there's a little set of ears for Josephine, and Pomp, Twaddle, and Bombast, another album. Donovan, Aurora, DCP-3, that's David Packard III. And then this balloon was on one of their records. And there's Lida Rose, what a name, Sullivan. And each one has a little icon. Lida's was a rose, Sullivan. And you got the Battlestar thing. And then this was Checkpoint Charlie with the little angel looking over it. But that's a very personal drum for him.
Yeah, yeah. For everybody watching, Kevin
This
Kevin
is what I
Packard. Yeah, he's a friend of ours that works for Pearl now, right? But he worked for Ludwig for a bit,
yep
and
yep.
works at Pearl. Friend of ours.
This is the least expensive flower pattern I do, and it's typical from 1925. Well, 26, 20, 26 is when it's most probably came in. I've done that one hundreds of times. This is a case that's a fun one. It's for the guy at Humes and Berg.
Oh yeah,
Jesus.
Michael Berg.
Mike
Yeah,
Berg.
yeah.
He started doing all these wild cases, and I was thinking, man, we should put some of those finishes on the drum. And he goes, how are you going to do that? Said, well, this is how I did it. That was the best looking one. But there's this dog, and look, these lugs are engraved.
Man,
There's the Humes and Berg logo. And there's this dog. His dog would turn its head sideways. This is the craziest dog. That's Xena.
oh man, look
And
at that.
this is a kind of a version of the scroll. He liked Jack Daniels, so there you go.
Old number 7. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's that Paisley scroll there. And then he's got these 2 cars. He likes these cars. Old number 7 made it on there twice. There's another car.
Yeah.
Change the world one case at a time. You got to love that.
You got to love that. Well, for anybody who listens to this podcast, the audio version, I'm sorry you're not getting to see all these incredible pictures that John is showing us right now, but you'll have to use your imagination.
You can go to my Instagram account and see every one of them.
That's right. That is
called
Drum Scratcher. Drum Scratcher. Go to his Instagram account or watch the YouTube version of this live from my drum room episode. Or just use your imagination as you listen. My friend Bob Viennes is asking, does the amount of engraving affect the tone of the drum? And we know the answer to that is no, correct?
Well, this is where my eyebrow starts hopping. And I go, oh, yes, I personally tune every drum by hand, removing just the precise amount of metal to give it the maximum resonance and tone that you can't get in any other method. But no, you're right. It doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
But that's sure a good party.
Look at that. That's maybe the best of them all right there. Look at that. Wow.
Bubba Gump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
That's only on Lauren's drum.
On Lauren's drum, yeah.
Oh, you love this one.
Look at that.
These drawings all came from videotapes because the digital art doesn't exist. It came out before they did digital art. These were all drawings that were shot to camera and put into videos and animated.
And this is unbelievable,
so we had
man.
This is for a guy named Jim Wagey. You may know Jim.
I know Jim,
he owns
sure, yeah.
12 McDonald's up in Kansas City.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, this will be the only McDonald's drum I'll ever do. Nope. Another guy saw it that owns 28 McDonald's, and he's retiring, and he gave himself one for his retirement gift. So there are two of these out there in the wild.
Is his name Wade Dixon? Is that who we were just talking? I see Wade saying my drum.
And this is a drum for my nephew-in-law and my niece. And neither one of them are drummers. They just wanted something engraved to put on their mantle so they could say they had something. Oh, I'm also a vintage clock watch guy. There's another Rush drum, somebody else's ideas.
Yeah.
But see, it's got gears. Oh, this is Bob Campbell's. His is the only one that has actual gears bolted to the shell. There's a DW badge that would have gone in that panel.
Yeah.
And I found these little tiny gears that I could just bolt in through the two screws. So there's little raised brass gears right there.
Man, unbelievable. Wow.
That I tried to convince a guy that I didn't laid a pocket watch into a drum. He really wanted to buy it. That's a pocket watch from probably around 1900 on top of one of those. And this one was a guy says, "Hey, what happens if you scratch it?" And I says, "Well, I'll give you the piece that I cut out and you can glue it back in." You see that corkscrew coming up off the shell?
I see that. Yeah.
That's what runs out in front of the blade.
Yeah.
I'm cutting out a zigzag trail that stays in one piece. And sometimes you can hear it sing to you. The longer it gets, the lower the pitch goes. But you're in good when the drum starts singing to you, and you can hear that pitch go down as you're cutting. It's just a good feeling. Wow. What is this one? Oh, this is some tribal thing. Skulls. Yeah. A lot of people did this. I did one for Avenged Sevenfold a while back. Do you remember when Aaron was playing with him? Aaron Eli?
Yep.
His nickname, there's Sinister Gates and something evil or something like that. His nickname was Muffin. Because you'll never meet a sweeter, nicer personality than Aaron Eli. But he wanted me to do a drum for him that had Avenged Sevenfold stuff on it. And you got those death bats, the skull with the bat wings.
Yeah.
But he's also a Disney fan. So I put death bats on it, but then I did Goofy bats and Donald bats and Mickey bats around the rest of the show. We may find that one here if I get to the right spot on the drum. And this was for a guy that just passed away. He played lacrosse. I don't know if you can see there's a skeleton playing lacrosse there.
Oh, I can. Yes. Yeah. Right
And
there. Yeah.
Yeah. He actually has one of the 2 drum sets I've engraved. That panel right there is a practice shell that I've had in my shop for years. And if you come here, I will hand you a blade in this shell and you make a mark on it and I will integrate it into the artwork. So that shell has been there for a while. Do you know John Wackerman?
Sure. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. John came out and was wanting to learn how to engrave. So he came to my house for a couple of days and he was cutting on this shell. So there's a Wackerman section.
Look at that. I love it.
But, yeah.
And a little apprenticeship program happening there at the Aldridge factory.
The Aldridge apprenticeship program. That's a Joyful Noise Elite, scrolled Elite in the process there. I didn't do a whole bunch of these 110ths because Ludwig didn't do it. But this one will crack you up. Did you see the movie They Live back in the 80s with Roddy Piper?
What was it called, John?
It's They Live, about zombies.
It was it the
and it was phrase all out of bubble. I came here to kick ass and chew bubble gum, and I'm all out of bubble gum. That's where that came from. Was that phrase? It came from this movie. But you had these zombies, and you couldn't see who the zombies were unless you were wearing these special glasses. So, but this was a guy that would have tattooed it on his arm if it had the gumption to put a tattoo on himself. But it worked out just fine to put it on a drum. If you like guns and you like Roddy Piper, this is your thing.
Oh man.
I use a lot of these DW drums because they are the most consistent thing I've come out. Look at that, all out of bubble gum, little Fleer bubble gum pieces. And
Yeah.
there's the glasses where you can see the yeah,
Wow.
Obey on the TV. There's a couple of twins. This guy wanted two drums exactly alike, one in chrome, one in brass. Okay.
Wow. Just
Pick
incredible.
guards. I did 300 of these things for Fender. And
When
it
did
originally was
how
just going to.
recent? Yeah, was that
I
recently
finished the
or?
last ones back last January. I finished them up. I started it in 2020. And originally it was just going to be a few pick guards for this limited edition for this Tyler Bryant. You ever heard of Tyler Bryant and the Shakedown? Kind of a new blues artist that opened
Mhm.
for REO Speedwagon a long time ago. Well, I did a pick guard for their guitar player, and the rhythm guitarist in the band is Graham Whitford, Brad Whitford's kid.
Oh yes, yeah.
And
Yeah.
well, Tyler had this pink Strat, and I gave it to him. He didn't like it, so he gave it to Graham, and Graham put it on his Strat. He played it for several years, and then Tyler decided he wanted it back, and he put it back on his guitar, but he changed the pickups on it, so they had to saw out one of the pickups. Well, they decided to make him a signature model at Fender, and they were going to make it look exactly like his. Only problem is, his looks like he drug it across a parking lot through the gravel, and it's got a place where the engraving is cut off. So when I was reproducing these, I says, "Do you want me to make a better pattern that doesn't run off the edge of the metal?" And they said, "No, we want it to look exactly like Tyler's. And if you slip and scratch, no problem, because we're going to relic all of these things." So there's a bunch of those out there now.
Look at that,
But
man. Hey, by the way, Lauren Wheaton is watching, and he said the best scratcher on the planet. So
well,
a big hello to our friend Lauren Wheaton.
hey, Lauren.
We were just talking about. Oh man.
He's a bit biased in his opinion.
Well, and he should be. He should be. He has the right. He's earned that right.
Lauren is the king of the drum tech, man.
Yeah. And he's a hell of a sweetheart too. Great, great
You know,
guy. Yeah, well, show us a couple more, John, before we'll start to wrap it up here. But I'd love to see a couple more things you'd like to show.
this is
so
on
much.
raw
Wow,
copper or raw brass. I'm not sure which one. It's kind of hard. It looks like
man.
copper. This is a reproduction of the pattern that Ludwig lasered onto the drums from 78 to 81 or 82. But this is hand engraved, obviously. Okay, here we go. Kiss. I did 72 drums for Kiss's final tour, snare drums for them to sell in their meet and greet. If you paid X amount of dollars, one song during the meet and greet, they would put your drum up on the stand and they would play a song in their last tour. And there was, at the end of the show, you'd get called back to the dressing room, and Eric would have that drum sitting there in his lap, and he'd sign it over and autograph it to you. And there was your big Kiss thing. Everybody in Kiss did that. You could get the snare drum, a bass, or a guitar from one of the two guitar players. Pretty penny, but it was a pretty cool deal too.
Yeah. Do you know what they sold for?
There were 20 of these. $6,000.
$6,000. Okay. And just Eric signed it, not the whole band, just Eric signed it.
If you paid for a whole band meet and greet, I think the whole band would sign it. But a whole band meet and greet, you also got one of the other guitars, and it was $25,000.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, it was expensive. But, I was just amazed that Gene and Paul would let him do it at all. And
yeah,
he got the money for it. That's a very behind the scenes. That organization is a lot different than what you would think it is. It's a lot nicer bunch of people than I was led to believe at first. And I've enjoyed, their lockers right across the hallway from REO Speedwagon's locker. So I've gotten to meet them all and visit with them over the years. This is a set. I think this is probably, Pine Knob. This is probably the last REO Speedwagon tour at Pine Knob. And that is a 100th anniversary B snare on that kit.
Wow.
It was engraved, and as I was cutting the final details on it, the plating started peeling off of the drum.
Boy.
And so I had this finished, gorgeous looking Black Beauty. There's 4 of them that happened to in the course of the run. What happens is that if you get somebody in the plating room and they're new, they might not wear gloves every time they touch the drum. And anytime you touch the drum, you get fingerprints, whorls from your hand are oily enough that they'll cause the plating not to adhere. It'll look right until something happens to break the surface. And I said, this is where somebody touched the drum. You can see where they put their hands on the inside. This is where their thumbs are. You can see where this is their palm print. And the guy says, no, sirree, we don't touch those drums when they're in our finishing shop. And this is not Ludwig, mind you. This is the people that did the plating. And I says, well, tell you what, you got fingerprints of everybody in your shop? Well, no. I said, well, if you did, I could tell you which one of them touched it because the fingerprint's still there under the plating. It didn't wipe off. It's permanently marked into the shell because the acids in your fingers will eat into unprotected metals like that. Mm-hmm. But this was one of those drums. I took it and engraved a whole bunch extra on it. So it's got more than 100th anniversary drums engraved on it. And then I took those 4 shells after it was finished and silver plated them. So there's 4 out in the wild like this. Brian Hitt has one. My son has one. And there are 2 other guys out there that have them. So,
amazing. Yeah.
Lots of drums.
Yeah.
More than you can shake a stick at.
And again, everybody, you can find all these pictures on John's Instagram feed, which is, I just had it here.
Drum Scratcher.
Drum Scratcher Drum Scratcher Instagram.
If John, you go to John Aldridge on Facebook, you can also see a lot more.
Yes.
I didn't start doing Instagram until probably 2020. But prior to that, there was a ton of stuff put on Facebook. And you have to go deep into the photo archives to find it. But you'll see pictures of me with hair.
Yes, there are some of those. In fact, speaking of that, hold on a second. I want to show one final photo here that I'm excited to show if I can find it. This is the guy that I remember meeting all those years ago.
Oh, geez. You got the mullet?
No, I don't know about the mullet, but just a handsome young man.
One, yeah.
That one.
Yeah. Yeah. This is so funny. Kurt sent me a picture of that ad in a frame. And what does my wife do? Let's get that picture out of this. This is a gorgeous frame. The perfect wife reaction.
Yeah. Oh, look at that frame. Chucks the picture aside. Oh, that is hilarious. Well,
I
John,
actually have this one on the house in my cat room.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Room of happiness. Yeah.
It's been such a blast having you here today and catching up like we said we hadn't done in too long a time and just talking about, I mean, and we've really just to pun intended, scratched the surface on your incredible career. Bada boom. No, I mean, really, we could spend another 3 hours looking at all the photos. And I, again, encourage everybody to go onto your Instagram feed and your Facebook feed and check out these pictures. And they can contact you through, is there
either one of those?
Either
Instagram
one of those, yeah.
Messenger or Facebook Messenger.
Or Facebook.
Or if you can remember, I've had the same email address since 1992.
I'll put that in the show notes.
nsmdjohn at AOL.com.
Okay, great. And I will include that in the show.
I'm also drumscratcher at gmail.com.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, John, hang with me for 1 second. Thank you, buddy. Thank you for being here. We'll end the live stream in 1 second, but I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank you for being here, and we'll have you back again when you're back home, and we can talk more about this stuff, and maybe I'll have a drum to show everybody that I just got back from you. With some exciting etching, engraving. See about that. But in the meantime, thank you so much for being here with me today, my friend. It's so great to see you. Thank you.
Pleasure hanging.
All right. Big hand, everybody, for John Aldridge. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon. All right, that's my show. If you enjoyed it, give it a like, leave me a comment, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also download the episodes on all podcast platforms. And please visit my website, livefrommydrumroom.com, for upcoming shows and information on purchasing Live From My Drum Room t-shirts and hoodies. 100% of the proceeds go toward a scholarship I've created with the Percussive Arts Society. The link is also in the show notes. And you can contact me through my website or at livefrommydrumroom@gmail.com. And remember, no drummers are harmed on any show. And drummers, when in doubt, leave it out. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I'll see you again real soon.